Okay. Hi, my name's Carly Bari. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I work out of the New York regional office, but I'm located in Massachusetts. We have partnership specialists located all across the country in order to create valuable partnerships to complete an accurate 2020 census. The U.S. Census Bureau is the largest statistical agency in the United States. They are the leading source of quality data about the nation's people and economy. And a lot of people wonder what we do between each of the 10-year census. And we actually run 130 different surveys and programs. This slide just shows you a list of examples. Some people are most familiar with the American Community Survey. It's an ongoing survey that is sent out every month to a small portion of the population. And between that and the decennial census, we get a really good idea of what our people and their demographics look like. It's also important that we are survey aware. So because the Census Bureau is conducting so many different surveys and programs, you may have already participated in one of the Census Bureau's surveys previously, but it's important to know that next year is when the 2020 census is happening, and that's when you can participate in the big decennial census. You maybe have also seen our field staff out in August through October this past fall. They were out verifying different addresses in preparation for the 2020 census. We are also aware that fraud is going to be an issue, and we have set up this 1-800 number so that anyone can report suspected fraudulent activity. This could include getting fraudulent mail or having someone coming to your door that is claiming they're a Census Bureau employee. And you can call that number to verify if that's accurate or not. So the goal for the 2020 census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. We are expecting to count over 330 million people in over 140 million housing units. So it's a huge endeavor, and that's why we're reaching out to all of our partners to see if they can help us with this. The census is mandated by the Constitution. It happens every 10 years, and the first one was in 1790. And it's important because it determines the representation and funding for our country. Today, I'm going to talk about how the census is safe, easy, and important. The 2020 census is important because it determines the number of seats for the House of Representatives for each state. It helps define congressional and state legislative districts. And what catches most people's attention is it helps us determine how $675 billion in federal funding is allocated. That funding is for programs, social service programs, as well as infrastructure. So things like roads, schools, libraries, senior centers, as well as social services such as SNAP, WIC, Section 8 housing, school lunch programs, etc. There's a list there on the slide that includes a few more. It's also important to note that this provides the benchmark for nearly every other United States survey. And these are the numbers that we will use for the next 10 years. We don't get a second chance at the decennial census. So it's important that we get it right every 10 years. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. The 2020 census is safe. So we are also really wanting to emphasize confidentiality and how important confidentiality is to the Census Bureau. Everyone's personal information when they respond to the census is protected by Title 13, which is a federal law. All of your information is compiled into statistics, and those statistics are the only thing that are shared. Your individual data cannot be shared with anyone, including other federal agencies such as ICE and the FBI. Every census employee, including myself, takes a lifetime oath to protect anyone's individual data that we may be in contact with. If we were to violate that oath, we could face a federal prison sentence, or a fine of up to $250,000 or both. So that's just an example of how serious we take protecting everyone's individual information. We are also aware that cybersecurity is an issue in this day and age. The Census Bureau has been working every single day for the past 10 years to ensure that they have the most up-to-date cybersecurity. They're constantly updating day to day from here through the rest of the census operation to make sure that your data remains safe. All your data is stored on Census Bureau servers that are housed here in the United States and will never go into the cloud or international servers. The 2020 census will be easy. There are 4 ways to respond to the census next year. For the first time ever, you can respond online. You can also respond by phone or by paper. Those 3 ways are considered self-response. And then you can also be visited by a census taker if you do not fill out one of the self-response modes. The form is very short. It's about 10 questions for every person who lives in the house. The questions include name, age, date of birth, race, origin, and then relationship to one another within the household, gender, and some operational questions such as how many people live in the home. In relation to frauds and scams, we want to make sure everyone's aware that the census will never ask for your social security number, money, or your bank account information. So then if you see something asking for that, then you will know that that is a fraudulent form. The other exciting thing we have this year is a strong language support program. The form online and by phone will be available in 12 non-English languages. Those languages are listed here, and those languages plus English cover about 99% of the American population. So that's going to be a very great tool. This chart is a little bit hard to see, but as you can see, it lists those 12 non-English languages that are available for online and phone response. In the middle there, the big square shows an additional up to 59 non-English languages where there will be additional online support and guides. So the form will not be in those languages, but there will be guides explaining how to fill out the form in all of those languages. The paper questionnaire will be in both Spanish and in English. And depending on if you reside in a census tract that has a high Spanish speaking population, most of your mailings will also be in Spanish and English. Additionally, I think it's really important to know that for the phone option, you will have a different phone number for each language that you can call, and those numbers will be listed on the invitation you receive in the mail to respond to the census. And say, for example, you want to respond in Polish, you can call the number specific for Polish, and you will speak to a human who speaks Polish and can respond to the census in that way. This slide describes what you should expect next year. So from March 12th to the 20th, everyone who receives mail at their home will receive an invitation to go online or to respond to the census on their phone. Some households may also receive the paper questionnaire depending on if they live in an area that's been identified to have poor internet access. Everyone will also receive a reminder letter. If you respond either online or by phone at this point, you will stop receiving mailings. If you have not responded, you will get another reminder at the end of March to early April. And then if you prefer to fill out a paper questionnaire and you didn't receive one on the first mailing, you will have to wait until your 4th mailing to receive that paper questionnaire. If you still have not responded to the census, you will get one final reminder at the end of April. And after that, a census taker starting in May will be visiting your home to collect your census information. So I just talked about how the census is safe, easy, and important. And there are two main ways that you all can help us spread the word and help us to achieve an accurate census. One way is to continue to share this message with everyone you know, that the census will be safe, easy, and important. And the other way is to help promote our jobs for the 2020 census, primarily our census takers that go door to door. So in Massachusetts, we have to recruit several tens of thousands of census takers. And we are currently undergoing our peak operations for recruiting. So we're asking anyone to share this information and share this website, 2020census.gov/jobs, to encourage people to go online and apply for these jobs. They are part-time and flexible. You can work whenever is convenient for you. You do not have to work full-time. You will work out of your home and you'll be assigned to your neighborhood. We try to hire people within their own communities. And the pay is typically very good. So it definitely ranges throughout the state and also throughout the country. It's based on, the wages in that area. Here's some of our key milestones for the census. So in August, we launched our Statistics in Schools program, which is a program that was developed by teachers. Excuse me. This was also a program that was developed in 2010 and had a lot of success. They found that students who learn about the census at home then go home and tell their parents about it and encourage their parents to complete the census. There's a lot of really great information online, and there are lesson plans created for all grades K through 12 in all subject areas. In January next month, we will start seeing a big advertising campaign, and we will start seeing more billboards and radio and TV commercial ads to help educate and advocate for the census. In March starts our group quarters enumeration, and group quarters include anywhere where people live in a communal living space, such as college dorms, prisons, nursing homes, soup kitchens, things like that. And then in mid-March, people can begin to go online to respond to the census. And April 1st is Census Day. So April 1st is the day that marks the line in the sand. We are actually the true question is asking where the census wants to know who's living in that dwelling on April 1st. So we count all children who are born up to 11/59/59 on April 1st. And we want to count people where they live and sleep most of the time. So college students should be counted where they go to college because they live and sleep in that area most of the time, most of the year. Mid-May through July, census takers will start going door to door. And by the end of July is when the operation ends. And you can only respond to the census through the end of July. Once we receive everyone's census data, we compile that into statistics, and those statistics are released to the president by December 31st, 2020. Another initiative that we have are complete count committees. So a complete count committee is essentially a group of organizations that has a vested interest in getting a complete count in their community. Most of the times it's a town has put together a complete count committee, but different organizations can come together and put together their own complete count committee as well. On this slide, you can see some of the typical participants in a complete count committee, but a complete count committee can be as much or as little work as you want. It's a very ad hoc committee, and it's just temporary. It's just to help us get a complete count for the census. So it's really only for the next 6 months. If you have any interest in developing a complete count committee or joining one, you can contact our staff and we can help you get that going. Here are the 2020 census phases. Right now we are in our education phase and our awareness phase, which will last through February. And then begins the motivation phase, making sure and motivating everyone to respond and self-respond, because self-response is the least costly option for the census. Sending enumerators is very expensive. So our goal is to get as great of self-response as possible. Then starts the reminder phase, which is May through July, and that's when census takers will be going out. And then we will go back after the operation and thank all of our partners for all of their help and support in this effort. Okay. Some of the ways that my role here is to support partners. We have several materials available online, and we are available to be present at any event that you might be having. We can have a table and have flyers and be able to answer questions. We also can help participate in different meetings or panels to help answer questions and educate folks about the census. And then there's several things that you can do to help with this effort as well. You can continue to share our job recruitment information, share and help educate others around you that the census is going to be safe, easy, and important. You can become a partner with the census and start or join a complete count committee, and then simply identify places and areas where the census could be included to share this message and help educate and advocate for the census. I have two more tools that I'll mention to you before wrapping up. One is the Response Outreach Area Mapper. It is a map that's available to the public online. And what it does is each of these shapes is a different census tract. If you click on one of those shapes, it pops up all of this socioeconomic and demographic information. It's actually much more than listed on this slide. And you can see that there's a low response score assigned to each tract at the top. And that is simply a prediction of what we expect to see for self-response next year. So the darker shaded areas have a higher low response score. And those are the areas that we're really targeting to make sure that they have good education and understanding of what the census is and what to expect. I'll also mention here that in Massachusetts, there's a town and city census, and so every year the town and city sends out the census in January. So next year you will all get two census, one from the town or the city, and then the federal census, which comes out in March. So it's important to fill out both of those, and they're important for different reasons. Also, we have the data dissemination program. The data dissemination program is also a free resource available to everyone. Census data is available to the public, but there is so much of it that sometimes people have a hard time finding exactly what they need. This is particularly helpful for those folks who write grants. The data dissemination program can help you find exactly what you're looking for through different workshops and webinars and trainings. So if you need help with that, we are happy to connect you with that staff. This is a video that I'm not going to show right now because I don't think the sound will work, but we'll link it also next to this webinar. You can find us on all the social media platforms. And finally, here is some of our contact information. You can feel free to contact the partnership program if you have any questions, and they can direct you to the right partnership specialist in your area to help answer your questions. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate you taking the time to learn about the census. Information. So I think at this point, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. And I think you can ask your questions using the chat. Is it possible to get the video so we can show it on our library lobby TV? Yes, it is. It is on the Census Bureau's, the 2020 Census YouTube channel. you can either look it up on your own, or we can connect. I think Judy could give you my contact information. So there are complete count committees that are already happening. So you can check with a lot of times the city or town has developed a complete count committee. And so you can check with them to see if they know of the contact. But if you cannot get any information that way, then you can definitely contact a Census Bureau employee. There's also a map both on the U.S. Census Bureau's website and the Secretary Galvin's website that have a map of the current Massachusetts complete count committees. So that's another way that you can look up to see if there's a complete count committee in your area. Is it possibly part of a complete count committee in a community other than your own? Yes, definitely. I think most complete count committees are welcome to anyone who's interested in helping achieve the, an accurate census. Let's see. Is the only time away a household is contacted by the mail or in person? Yes, the only time. The Census Bureau will only contact you through mail or have a person visit your home. Now I'm looking at the Q&A. I think I've answered. Oh, one thing the League does is write letters to the editor explaining the importance of the census. I think before you were to share this with the media, I would appreciate if you could contact one of the census employees, including myself. We have a pretty strict media interaction. In other words, we're not only certain folks are supposed to talk to the media. So if you wouldn't mind contacting either me or someone directly. It looks like that person, June, is in Cape Ann. There's a census person who lives up there, Ann Williams, who could definitely help you. And I can give you their contact information. If you want to, I guess maybe the best way would be I can put my information in the chat, and then you all can just contact me that way. Oh, if you wanted to write your own article for the local paper, have at it. But I think the question was about downloading this specific presentation. And since I was the one to give the presentation, I don't think we should give that directly to the media. But if you want to do your own article or whatnot, feel free to contact the media that way. So the Census Bureau does not directly provide printed materials free to the community. We have all the materials online, and the community and community members are welcome to print those and distribute those widely. The other thing that we can do is that we can attend an event and bring our own materials and distribute the flyers that way. The third thing that is available is there is a grant available to community organizations through Secretary Galvin's office that provides different organizations with a small amount of money to help promote the 2020 census and get an accurate count. So if that's something that your community is interested in, I can help point you in that direction too, but it is out of Secretary Galvin's office. One question came in, can you suggest something we could do on February 14th? Oh, League Day of Action. I did not know that was the League Day of Action. I'm trying to think if there's something specific that you could do. What are can anyone tell me what are some of the things the league would normally do on that day? Oh, it's the first time. Well, you could, let's see, that's kind of an interesting timing because we won't be quite ready to respond to the census, but definitely holding an event where you could it would be good timing to make people aware of the census because it will be coming within the next month. Yeah. Social media has been a great tool for us, especially in recruiting. So I think hopefully we'll keep that social media momentum going to use for response, especially since people can respond online. So having some sort of online presence around that day could be great. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think a little bit more about that, but it might be something, yeah, doing an event at your local school. So the Statistics in Schools program is encouraging all schools to do some sort of census activity, and that could be an event in coordination with the league. We also are having a Statistics in Schools week, March 2nd to the 6th. So that's just kind of again, it's good timing to celebrate the census and get everyone ramped up to receiving the census invitation in the mail in the following weeks. But yeah, that's definitely something that you all could take back to your area leagues and talk about if there's an event or something that you could do on League Day of Action in coordination with the 2020 census. That would be great. Yes, Cynthia just said, hold 100th anniversary of, I think, women voting and emphasize how important it is to vote and do the census. Yeah, definitely. I think next year is the 100th anniversary. So that would be a great coordination to do and with the census. So Judy just mentioned that the League of Women Voters Massachusetts is on the statewide complete count committee. And that committee is made up of organizations across the state working to ensure a complete count in Massachusetts. So it's kind of one really big complete count committee. And she suggested that we could see if there's partnership opportunities with that group too, to do something for League of Action Day, I think. That would be a great idea. I think before this, Judy mentioned that some people had questions about our group quarters operation. So for college students particularly, any student that lives on campus, on an on-campus building, is counted within the group quarters operation. So we work directly with those colleges and universities to collect census data about all the students living on campus. College students should be counted where they go to school and not at their home where their parents live, because they live and sleep most of the time at their college location or university location. Then students who live off campus are counted. They're not counted within group quarters, but we do work closely with the colleges and universities to identify neighborhoods where there is a lot of off-campus housing. And we actually do our in-person follow-up earlier in those neighborhoods, because if we waited until May to visit them, for those who have not filled out the census, we would most likely miss them when they leave to go do internships or go home for the summer. So we usually start the census takers visiting those neighborhoods in April. Judy asked, how are persons in county jails awaiting trial counted? That is an excellent question, and I would have to look that up for you. And then how are persons released from prison after April 1st counted? So if they are still in prison on April 1st, they will be counted in the prison. If they are released on March 31st, then they will be counted, then they should be counted wherever they are living on April 1st. So if it's with, you know, a relative or a friend, or if they have to be in a group home of some kind, then they should be counted in that area, if that's in that location, if that's where they are on April 1st. For people without access to computers, is the goal to work with them to do census online? Yeah, so people without computers, we are working with a lot of local libraries to coordinate what we're calling response events. And we are looking to hold these events with several computers available or tablets. You can also respond to the census on your smartphone. And so we will have census employees at those events to help people respond to the census. So yes, and senior centers as well. So we are working with both of those, but that is definitely a way that the league could help, is to coordinate events like that if they haven't, if we haven't already done so. Yeah, so people living in dorms are counted as a resident for the location where the dorm is, instead of their parents' home, because that is where they live and sleep most of the time. And the reasoning behind that is that, you know, even though they're going to college and they primarily are involved in campus activities, they are still using the infrastructure of that area for a majority of the year. So Judy asked, who's the most likely group to be undercounted? So there's several different groups that we consider to have low response rates. They include renters, low income, recent immigrants, and actually males between 18 and 24. And then the population that was the most undercounted in 2010 is actually children under 5. So this is a really, what I thought was a surprising fact. People simply forget to put their kids on the census a lot of times. And then there's also a lot of transient kids. So kids in the foster system, or kids who get bounced around between grandma and grandpa's house or aunt and uncle's house or so forth. So it's really important to make sure that we are working with all the families in our area to make sure that kids under 5 get counted, because if you think about it, if they don't get counted this time, they're going to be, you know, 12, 14, 15 by the time they are counted. And in the meantime, they're going to be using a lot of those social services that the census helps determine how to allocate the money for. So they'll be using school lunch programs and WIC, things like that. So it's really, really critical to make sure we get all of those little kids counted. Are you working with local housing authorities? We are definitely working with local housing authorities. We are working a lot with public housing to make sure census takers have access to those areas. A lot of people who, another thing that I just thought of is a lot of people who rent, especially certain immigrant communities and things like that, they'll have more people living in their home than maybe they put on their housing assistance form or that their landlord knows about. And they're concerned that their census data will expose them for, you know, whatever thing that they're trying to avoid. And so it's really important to share with them that, again, their census data will never be shared with anyone else, including their landlord or their housing assistance form. So next question is, what is your expectation regarding undocumented people responding to the census? So if someone is living here, they are important and they need to be counted. So we have no opinion or preference on their documentation status. If they live here, they should be counted. That's so our expectation is to count everyone who is living in the United States. So providing materials. So we have a couple materials that we use a lot. The confidentiality handout is definitely an important one. There's another one about counting kids under 5. Census 101 is a really good overview. So Judy, we can talk about that and I can point you to the right location for some of those materials that I would suggest. Carol asked, does the not sharing policy include more detailed survey that I think some people get? Yes, so all census data on all their programs is protected by Title 13. So everyone's information that's provided on any census survey, even outside the decennial census, is confidential. I think that's what that question is asking. When is the data released to Ancestry, etc.? So yes, a lot of people are interested in genealogy research, and census data is confidential, but it is eventually released after 72 years. And the reasoning for that was, at the time of that was a pretty reasonable life expectancy, and that people are most likely in a much different living situation, life situation after 72 years. So their data is no longer confidential. Yeah, so Carol asked that she remembers past census, a small portion received more detailed questions. That is correct. So in past census, there used to be a long form and a short form, and there is no longer a long form. Everyone will receive just the short form census. And essentially the American Community Survey that I mentioned really early on has replaced the long form of the decennial census. Are children born after April 1st, but before the completion of data collection counted? No, children born after April 1st are not to be counted on the census. But if your child is born before 11/59/59 on April 1st, then they should be counted, even if they're still in the hospital or whatnot. And like I said, I'm here to help. So since all of you are across the state, I'm probably not the specific person you'll work with, but I can definitely put you in touch with my colleagues who work in your area, and you can work with them. I'll also mention too that we have several people on staff who speak different languages. So if you have an event that where you need a Portuguese speaker, for example, we can help try to facilitate that and make sure one of our staff can be there. I believe we have a few Portuguese speakers, a few Spanish speakers. We have an Arabic speaker, Haitian Creole, and someone who speaks Cambodian. And I think that's primarily the staff that we have now, but it's always changing. So if you have a need, feel free to ask and we can try to make it happen. Are there any other questions before we kind of wrap up? Thank you all for joining and taking the time to learn more about the census, and I hope that you can share this with your local leagues and help us to achieve an accurate census next year.